spiritual principle. One of the most dangerous times that there can be for a believer can be right after a great victory. And before we see how that affects Abram, let's look at another example. We'll come back here, of course, to finish Abram's story, but turn for a moment over to the book of 1 Kings. 1 Kings chapter 18. 1 Kings chapter 18. This is a very familiar story to most people. It's in the time of King Ahab, who was the famous of Ahab and Jezebel fame. One of the wickedest kings that Israel ever had. And it was another time of famine, actually. It hadn't rained at this time for 3.5 years in Israel because of the judgment God sent for their idolatry. And God's prophet Elijah comes here now to speak to King Ahab. 1 Kings 18, and we'll start in verse 17. And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he that troubleth Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house. And ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Baalim. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. And Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel, and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And all the people answered him not a word. Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord. But Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And I will dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And call ye in the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God that answereth by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, It is well spoken. Now, since Elijah had been the one who announced this judgment of the famine, the drought and the famine in the first place, Ahab here, and likely a lot of the people, blamed him for it, not themselves in their own sin. And the challenge the king in that day and time was to take your life in your hands. Nonetheless, Elijah faithfully stood right up to Ahab and declared the name of the Lord and issued his challenge. Most of you know this story, what goes on. The false prophets of Baal offer their sacrifice first in the morning, and they call on Baal, and of course there's no answer because Baal didn't exist. And so they proceeded to cry out louder, and they worked themselves into a religious fervor and cut themselves and jumped up and down and all this stuff they did, and nothing happened at all. But at 3 PM, the time of the evening sacrifice, Elijah steps up to take his turn. Look at verse 30. And Elijah said unto all the people, Come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. Remember, we said a little while ago, that's always the answer, to return to God's altar. Look down to verse 36. And it came to 36. And it came to pass at the time of the evening, of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that thou art God in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word. Hear me, O Lord. Hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord God, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, The Lord, he is the God. The Lord, he is the God. And Elijah said unto them, Take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon, and slew them there. Now notice they didn't say in verse 36, the Lord is God. They said, the Lord, he is the God, the one and only. They finally figured that out, at least for a while. But it didn't end there. See, now they had returned to the Lord, so he will lift the drought. He'll lift the judgment of the famine. Look at verse 42. So Ahab went up to eat and to drink, and Elijah went up to the top of Carmel. And he cast himself down upon the earth and put his face between his knees, and said to his servant, Go up, now look toward the sea. And he went up and looked and said, There is nothing. And he said, Go again 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time that he said, Behold, there ariseth a little cloud out of the sea like a man's hand. And he said, Go up, say to Ahab, Prepare thy chariot and get thee down, that the rain stop thee not. And it came to pass in the meanwhile that the heaven was black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain. And Ahab rode and went to Jezreel. And the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Now in verse 46,